Okay, good afternoon. Philip Stockin, Chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I'll call this committee meeting to order. First item is roll call.
Mr. Stockin,
Present.
Mr. Fanton,
Here.
Mr. Curran, Mr. Decker,
Here.
Mr. Havey, Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Here.
Mrs. Root,
Here.
Mr. Crandall. 7 members present.
Okay, the next item is the approval of minutes from our April 12 meeting. I take a motion for that. Mrs. Root, support Mr. Havey. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Mr. Budinger from Real Property Tax Director, his office is here with several items for us to consider. It's all yours, Mr. Budinger.
Okay, the first thing we're going to ask for is the creation of a tax map technician trainee. This would not be creating a new person in my office. I have a retirement tomorrow. Will be the senior tax mapper's last day. Unfortunately, we received news last week that the tax mapper, the other tax mapper, is off on extended medical leave. So that leaves my office without a mapper for the foreseeable future. This is a position that we cannot just pull somebody to fill. It's a very technical job that very few people can do. So unfortunately, I'm asking to fill a trainee position, and then I think we're going to come behind that with filling the retirement position of the senior.
Could I have a motion? Mr. Healy? Second, Mr. Havey? Are there questions? Mr. Decker? No?
Question.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Next item.
The next thing we're requesting is tax bill correction. This one was for, I just gotta look at the school. The school collector had collected a tax and then returned it as unpaid in error. So we're just asking for that correction to be pushed through.
Mr. Havey? Mrs. Root, second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Mr. Budinger, there was a request on here also for the senior tax map technician and all subsequent positions. Did you want that?
That is
in there?
correct, I'm sorry, yes. So that's a follow-up to the trainee position. This would be for the other, for the retirement
Yeah,
position.
and to fill those, including hiring from the outside if necessary.
That's correct. Yes.
So you want that one also to be approved today?
Correct. That may be a little bit before
Yeah.
we can fill it, but yes.
Okay. A motion? Mr. Havey, second, Mr. Decker. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you, sir. Good luck. Next is County Administrator Kristen Knapp with a couple requests.
Thank you. We did put out an RFP recently for lease of farmland. We have 15 acres out at the jail whose lease was up, so we put out an RFP for a new lease. We received one proposal, and it is attached. And I'm just scanning down here. The amount is $3,750 per year. That is an increase. The last one was $3,333 per year. So I am asking to move this forward with a resolution. There will be a contract attached to the resolution packet. The county attorney will review it. It's the same contract as last time, updated terms, and we'll add the insurance certificate to it.
This time it's just for what was set, not for his inquiry about extending the contract.
Well, you'll have to pick one. I mean, how long do you want the contract to be is really the question.
Okay.
Or do you want the contract to be the set term with the option to renew it for those period of time?
Did everybody read this previously, I hope? Because the standard contract was for how many years?
3 years?
5 years, I think, and then he was asking for the possible option of a couple more years added on.
Well, I'll move it at the 5-year period.
Okay. Motion for Mr. Healy to accept this bid for a 5-year period. Is there support? Mrs. Hopkins. Questions?
I have a
Mr.
question
He-
also.
Mr. Healy?
I can't remember, you'll have to excuse me, but how much land is involved out there? At one time I did know how much tillable land there was there.
15 acres?
15 acres? All right, thank you.
Question.
Mrs. Hopkins?
May I ask, is this dairy the one who has been renting it previously?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Decker?
so we're increasing to $37.50 a year and making it a 5-year term, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Other questions?
I just say I don't have, my only problem with having the renewable option on there is we don't know what's going to happen to the economy or what prices will be or anything else between, to give them the option for another 5 years is take it out to 10 years is an awful long time period. I'm sure we'll be able to reach some agreement at the end of the 5-year period. It'll make everybody happy. Thank you.
I believe they were looking to lease it through the end of 2024 with an additional 2 years if you choose to, yeah.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Decker?
just for those of you that don't know, this is John Boer's Dairy from Sandusky.
He owns and rents a lot of
Lot of
land
land.
along Route 19 and the Genesee River.
And really, it's not a 5-year contract. You're looking of all at 2024, 2023, 2022, half of 2021. So it's 3.5 years. That's why I think he was looking to do the extra 2 years on top of that.
Okay. So the term would be for, again, how many years?
The term runs through the end of 2024, so that's approximately 3.5 years
Years, fine.
total. And when we did the package for RFPs, we gave the option, if they wanted to have that extra 2 years in there, they could put a bid price in that would include those 2 years as well, to make it 5.5 years.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Did you want to talk about the,
So my next one would be authorization to do an RFP for consultant services related to the American Rescue Plan recovery monies that we're expected to receive. I believe sometime in May is the expected date. That is shifting, but it's a large amount of money that we're receiving. It's 8.9 million, with half of it this year, half of it next year. We do feel that a consultant would be best, give us the best use of that money, make sure we're using it properly. I do know most of the counties in the state are looking at consultant services to help them manage this very unexpected windfall. And I also believe this is probably not the only set of monies we're looking at. I know, President Biden is looking at infrastructure package. This is something we could possibly roll into this as well. Our treasurer has looked into this extensively, and we feel that this is the best way to go about this.
we have a motion. Mrs. Root? There's support. Mr. Decker? Are there questions now for the administrator?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes, can I ask how the compensation for the person who wins this RFP are calculated? As a percentage? Is it a set amount?
To be honest, Mrs. Hopkins, we won't know till they put in the proposal.
Okay.
We have no idea, but we expect to be able to take that out of the American Recovery money that we
I
get.
would think, yeah.
So it wouldn't be any additional money to the taxpayer. We would take it right out of the money that we get. But we
As
don't,
long
at
as
this
it's not
point,
99%.
yeah, we don't have any idea what they're gonna come in with a proposal. We believe it to be very reasonable, that it'll be a reasonable amount. but we can always accept or reject anything. So
Right.
we left that in there as our option.
Thank
for
you,
If we
Ms.
don't like
Ross.
them all, we're gonna get rid of them all.
Thanks. I'll look forward to hearing that result. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Decker?
Do we have people, some consultants in mind, or has anybody reached out to you, or have you reached out to anybody yet, or?
I know our treasurer has an extensive list of people that could be interested, as every other county is pretty much going the same route on this. She could answer those questions.
So we could maybe piggyback on with someone else, or?
I-
We
R-
could do that. We have talked to other counties about doing that. We're unsure what they're going to propose. It could be that we share them with a contiguous county or something of that effect. But I think we're all going to be competing for the same
For the same pot?
same pot, yeah, and the same group of people. So there's auditors involved in that, financial consultants. There'll be a lot of people. We'll post it on the website, and we'll mail out a few to people that we know are interested. So we'll go that route and see what we get
Okay.
back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other Mr. Graves?
Yeah, thank you. Terry, I'm having trouble wrapping myself around this. Could you give me an example of the red tape or whatever the federal government would come up with that would force us to do this?
Well, there's an awful lot of documentation to read through to even see what the parameters are of the use of the money, where we're going to get it, how we're going to claim it, and all the other pots of money that are covered in the stimulus package. There's not only the amount that was specifically designated to our county, but there are a lot of other pots of money that we could be eligible to get. We don't have the staff here to accommodate the time that it's going to take to go through all that. As it is, we're fortunate enough that Chris and I are night owls, so we read through what we can after hours, but there's an awful lot of documentation to go through. These people are going to be the experts on it, and they're going to be the ones trying to audit those funds and make sure that we're accounting for them correctly in our AUDs and our financials. So personally, I think that that's the best avenue we can take to make sure we're doing it right and not jeopardizing the use of that money or even getting it.
So basically, they're gonna write the music to how we spend our money.
They're going to use the documentation that we get from the feds to determine how we're going to do that, to be able to fit in claiming and making sure we're going to keep it.
Do our department heads get to play into this?
For the monies that they will be allocated, like if there's a certain pot of money for, let's say Office for the Aging, then yes, we'll try to aid them.
Let me
in
give you an
getting-
example. Public Works. I have to serve on that committee under the able leadership of Dwight Fanton.
Right, that's a good example. If there's an infrastructure
Roads,
part of it.
Bridges
Yep.
are a big component here.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the big five that ought to receive a lot of attention. So
I think
I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out.
I think what Terry is saying is obviously there's some direct amounts. So DSS and OFA are some agencies that might have something that's directly applied to them above and beyond that 8.9 million. So they would have a great say in that.
So that'll come with strings attached right from the
Right.
beginning. Yeah.
The 8.9 million is going to be open to whatever projects this board can pick that would meet the restrictions that the feds set on that. That being said, I'm reaching out to the departments I know that are already, we have a working list of projects. DPW is one of them. I've talked extensively to Tom and Steve, Justin, Dean, all of them about what projects they have that are upcoming to know what might fit into this. So that's just one department, one example, but anything I can think of, anything that Terry can think of, we obviously know what this board's goals are. We've talked about them for 4 years. We'd like to try to meet some of those
You've
goals.
both been very good about handling our finances, so I have full faith and confidence in you. Thank you.
Mr. Graves, in the RFP that's sent out, there's a page about this much of this, and this here just lists things which we expect them to help us with.
That'll be my midnight reading.
So they do have very specific requests for this consulting outfit. Way in the back, Mr. Crandall.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of this, and we've had projects that have come along that have been a lot of money that frankly we could have and should have used a outside consultant or project manager, if you will. This is a new new ball game. There's language that's there that is going to be difficult to understand, and along with what Legislator Graves is asking, we don't know what that is, and I think that it's our responsibility to look into this and understand it and hire a firm that does where we don't or can't keep up with that. Very important. A lot of money at stake, and not only the close to $9 million, but there's other monies that are out there that I think that if we look at this right, depending on what comes back with the RFP, is other monies that may be available for projects that we could seek in that way too. So very supportive and anxiously look for, see what comes back for those proposals. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. County Attorney, Mr. Donegan. You had some requests here. You want to speak to any of them, or? you
Yeah,
wanna-
we have two. The first request for approval of an agreement between Allegheny County and outside counsel. This is to assist with representation for the Department of Social Services. These matters would be individual matters where my office at the moment either does not have the staffing to take on or are in areas that require additional expertise and would be easier farmed out to someone who is able to provide the attention that they need. I do not see this being used extensively with my office positions being filled, and this really is a stopgap in the meantime.
Do we have a motion, please? Mr. Decker, a second, Mr. Fanton. Now, are there questions for Attorney Donegan? I guess they're afraid to question the attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Number two, sir.
The second request is for approval to hire a third assistant county attorney.
Okay, and this has been approved by the necessary administration. Move Mrs. Hopkins, second Mr. Havey. Are there questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. And the last one?
The last one is a request to amend the Section 4 salary plan to make adjustments to the salaries of the second assistant to the county attorney and the third assistant to the county attorney. This is being requested based on the experience level of the candidates who I am looking to hire for this position, having comparable experiences, and these adjustments would make it so the second assistant and third assistant would be receiving the same compensation.
And did I understand that this net effect is a little bit less cost to the county?
That's correct.
So we save a little bit of money this way. Motion, Mrs. Root, second, Mr. Fanton. Are there questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Terry Ross, County Treasurer.
Okay. I'm here to request the permission to fill an account clerk typist position that has recently been, I received a resignation or a retirement that is going to take place on May 21st. So I'm looking to fill that, have permission to fill that position. It is an account clerk typist position. It is currently part-time at 27 and a half hours. I would like to make that 35-hour a week. There is no additional cost to benefits for this position.
Moved by Mr. Healy, seconded Mrs. Root. Are there questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Hooker, approval of the Vercata quote, but I don't have the document in front of me, paper. But go ahead, sir. Now
Hello,
I have two copies.
good afternoon. This is a request to approve the Vercata quote, which was a demonstration that you had last week.
We have a
believe-
motion. Mr. Fanton, second, Mr. Decker. Now, are there questions? Would you like to just explain what the whole thing is about briefly? In other words, somebody listening or here may not know what is the Vercata quote program.
So our current security system is limited as to what it can do. It's very hard to add cameras and very hard to look up incidents or look at cameras for specific times. Vercata is a cutting edge company who makes that easier, makes it much simpler to add cameras, subtract cameras, and it allows us to put cameras at places that we wouldn't have been able to put them before.
The presentation was very impressive. So we had a motion. Are there further questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Graves.
Keith and I have been talking about this quote for quite some time, and I'm kind of wondering, Keith, why there wasn't a couple other quotes. I think we had talked about that,
There were.
and we didn't get to look at those, or,
You normally don't, no. Usually it's,
but there were three other quotes, or three in total,
there were other quotes, yes.
and this was the lowest one,
This is the best one that fits the county.
most qualified. Okay. I have one minor, that isn't going to dictate how I'm going to vote on the proposal, but one thing that I don't like is that they've omitted the elevators, cameras in the elevators. I'm familiar with the chain of evidence. When an incident occurs, the things that happen after that, how weapons are handled, how material evidence is handled, and those kind of things. And it leaves the elevator out. There, in the new courthouse, the addition, there are cameras in the elevators over there. I won't reveal all of our conversation about that for security reasons, but it's obvious that someone, when the building was designed, felt that it was important to track movement through the building if something bad happened. I'd like to see it on a camera in these elevators. They've been vandalized before, not serious. They've been torn the light out or broken down a wall or anything, but there has been vandalism in those elevators. Maybe it wasn't reported to the sheriff's office because it was so minor and no witnesses are available because there was no camera to record what happened there. But if you could see your way to have the elevators covered with cameras, I think this would be an excellent proposal. Thank you.
If that's something you want to amend, now's the time to do that.
I'm not on the committee.
Okay,
Chairman, let me speak.
understood.
I can answer a little bit on this. This is a product of a public safety subcommittee you had in 2017. These were some recommendations that we go through our camera system and update it. We put aside $70,000 in capital. We had looked at a couple systems in 2019 and weren't able to proceed with those. This is finalizing that project, getting most of the cameras in. This is not all of the cameras we want to do. We can add on at any time, and we should be able to use these prices to add on in future years if we want to. We did lock them into these prices. So I think this is a system that we can grow into, and I don't think you're ever finished with building security. It's something you need to continuously monitor and add to as necessary. So I'm pleased. I think this is a good start.
Very wise words, and I agree, but I know that once something gets accomplished or gets done, it's better to have it from A to Z, one unit, one tracking device all the way through. So I'm a little disappointed about the cameras in the elevators, but if the sheriff's office is willing to work with it and IT is happy with it and this body agrees, I'm in compliance.
Thank you. Are there other, Mr. Decker?
Just a comment, Keith, this gives us the opportunity, you said, to add on and sticking with the same company, then everything should be compatible. We shouldn't have issues with different, like a patchwork quilt. We got one smooth flowing security system.
That is correct.
Okay.
Other comments?
Part of my questions for the company, we're buying cameras and we're buying software licensing agreements for the cameras. What would happen if they were to go out of business or we choose to do business with another company in the future? We should be able to buy a different licensing agreement for these cameras through a different company. It should be something that's transferable. We could still use the cameras and shop elsewhere if we wish to after this agreement's over with. So we're no means buying something that's going to become obsolete if we choose not to go with Vercata in future years.
The problem here is that the technology will change within a very short period of time. Right now, we're running wires to all these cameras that may not need them in the future. All kinds of different things that could happen.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Healy.
I prefer not to discuss the strengths and possible shortfalls of our security apparatus in open session any more than we already have done so. And probably would have preferred we hadn't done as much as we had, but I think we discussed it the other day in closed session. Everybody should know pretty well what they're voting on, and I'm willing to move ahead with this, and we'll do whatever else is necessary on down the road. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Clerk of the Board has mortgage tax apportionment routine at this time of the year. Is there something more you'd like to say?
No, I'm requesting a resolution approving the apportionment of mortgage tax to the tax districts and authorizing the warrant.
Have a motion, Mr. Havey. Second, Mr. Decker. Are there questions? We do this twice a year, I think. So, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried.
And I'm also requesting a resolution authorizing the payment to the towns and villages of the mortgage tax fees retained by the county clerk's office to cover the necessary expenses incurred for the period October 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021 in the administration of the mortgage tax program. The amount of $25,000, actually that is not the correct amount, but the funds need to be appropriated and distributed to the towns and villages.
Have a motion, Mr. Fanton. Second, Mr. Healy. Are there any questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. That's the last I have. Is there any old business? New business? And for the good of the order? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Fanton moves. Mrs. Root seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and we're adjourned.